Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Arcana Unearthed. Apologies for the slight delay in getting started. I seem to be having tech issues galore this afternoon. But we are here today to catch up, quite frankly, on all of the Unearthed Arcana goodness that has been coming out of late. We're still looking at playtest packet number 5 of currently 6, because they are pulling this stuff out thick and fast, quite frankly, and time is of the essence. So today we're going to be looking at the continuing where we left off last episode, which was last Friday, where we looked at the Barbarian class. Wanted to have a quick, and I think it will be fairly quick, look over the Barbarian subclass of the Path of the Berserker, and also a look at the proposed changes to the fighter class as well. It would be, if I'm quite frank, quite handy to have our resident fighter player Anina Kaski, who plays Saga in the Bardic Quest main show, which is our actual play campaign. It'd be good to have her, but she is busy entertaining folks on cruise ships and various other things at the moment. So her schedule is a little bit difficult to predict. Not that she was scheduled to be here anyway. She wasn't, but it would be handy if she was. Anyway, enough about that and all the behind-the-scenes kerfuffle that goes on with running a YouTube channel and show like this. Let's get into it, shall we? So, the Barbarian subclass. Now, interestingly, and this came up last time, Wizards of the Coast have now started moving away from having different titles for each class's subclasses, the collective. They're just calling them subclasses now. By comparison, a Berserker's collection of subclasses was called Primal Paths, but now I think they're trying to use this united language of subclasses now, which I understand from a ease of consumption perspective, but I kind of prefer the title as opposed to the subclasses. But again, it makes sense. It's akin to Prestige classes from 3rd edition and Paragon Paths from 4th edition from those days. Just everything being unified, which is not bad. But today we're looking at the Path of the Berserker subclass for Barbarians, which is kind of the standard subclass that you would expect, which is the Path of the Berserker. So, I'll be honest, I had to have a bit of a quick skim through, and not much has changed, if I'm honest with you. The Path of the Berserker, as it reads in the playtest packet: for some barbarians, rage is a means to an end, that end being violence. The Path of the Berserker is a path of untrammeled fury. As you enter the Berserker's rage, you thrill in the chaos of battle. Sounds very fun. I quite like Barbarians as a class. I think I actually prefer them to Fighters, if I'm honest. Just because they're a little bit more flavourful. But then that being said, I have only played as a Barbarian and not as a Fighter, because I am a forever DM. But I did remember having a lot of fun with a Barbarian, who was a gnome Barbarian, because as a man of smaller stature, I quite appreciated the little man syndrome trope, so I lent into that. Anyway, so some design notes for the Path of the Berserker. Here are the main updates in this subclass. Frenzy no longer causes you to gain a level of exhaustion. In addition, it causes you to deal extra damage each round that you use Reckless Attack, instead of giving you a bonus action which conflicts with Rage's use of a bonus action. Yes. We'll come to that in a minute, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. Mindless Rage ends the charmed and frightened conditions on you, rather than merely suspending them. Retaliation has moved from 14th level to 10th level, and Intimidating Presence has moved from 10th level to 14th level. So they've swapped them around and has been improved. It can affect a group of creatures rather than only one. Your rage extends its range, and you don't have to spend your action to extend its duration. So, let's get into the particular wordings of these things, as I like to do during these episodes of Arcana Unearthed. So let's have a look at, first of all, Frenzy, as it appears in the 2014 Player's Handbook, which is the Player's Handbook that you've probably been using at your table thus far when running 5th edition. Frenzy. Starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, you can go into a frenzy when you rage. If you do so, for the duration of your rage, you can make a single melee weapon attack as a bonus action on each of your turns after this one. When your rage ends, you suffer 1 level of exhaustion, as described in Appendix A, which is, again, the 2014 Player's Handbook. So, how does that compare to the new Unearthed Arcana? As proposed in the current playtest packet, it reads, you can go into a frenzy in battle. If you use Reckless Attack while your rage is active, you deal extra damage to the first target you hit on your turn with a strength-based attack. To determine the extra damage, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. The damage has the same type as the weapon or the unarmed strike used for the attack. So, first of all, let's talk about the action economy here. Because previously, you had to use a bonus action to get an extra attack. Let me read that correctly. If you do so for the duration of the rage, you can make a single melee weapon attack as a bonus action on each of your turns. Yeah, so essentially, it works as like an extra attack. And you get exhaustion from it. They're switching around the action economy of the Barbarian, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, with a focus on utilising the bonus action as rage. But what they're doing, particularly with the Path of the Berserker, is they're then basically granting you additional powers from having utilised your rage mechanic. Which again I think is a familiar theme that we're seeing across many classes of like these core powers, these core abilities of these classes, and the subclasses interacting with those core abilities differently and unlocking different things. So essentially now, the turn of the Barbarian is going to be about using the bonus action to extend the rage, and then the actions within that rage, providing different abilities and details depending on your subclass, which I quite like. If we look at Reckless Attack, just to really go into detail, which we covered in the last video, but Reckless Attack, you throw aside all concern, blah 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 for defense when you attack. When you make your first attack roll on your turn, you can decide to attack recklessly, so that doesn't cost you anything. Aside from the fact that you'll be rolling with advantage, and attacks against you will have advantage too. With Frenzy, what you're doing is you're saying, right, well, not only am I going to have advantage with my Reckless Attack, but I'm also going to do extra damage. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty powerful, I think, particularly given that extra damage scales as you go up. I'm not sure how I feel, though, about the removal of exhaustion on this. I know a lot of people don't like exhaustion. I know people are like, ugh, exhaustion sucks as a mechanic. But I quite like exhaustion, and I quite like exhaustion because it gives the DM something to utilize as a mechanic for exploration. And kind of a threat to the environment. Beyond just hit points. I like exhaustion as a mechanic. It is one of those things that only comes into play every now and then. And when it does, it can be really, really effective and can increase peril and increase drama. And as a dungeon master, My role is to increase tension and drama as much as I possibly can, and exhaustion is a wonderful mechanic for doing that, in my personal opinion. I like what they've proposed for the changes to exhaustion about simply it being a negative bonus or a negative modifier on things. I like that. I'm a little bit sad that exhaustion is something that gets utilized very little in D&D anyway. And so when something, as a DM, when something pops up and says, this can cause exhaustion, I get a little bit excited. So I think it's sad that that's been taken away from this. But I understand why to a degree, because exhaustion is a controversial thing. I just hope that when they utilize the Dungeon Master's Guide and start doing Dungeon Master's Guide playtest material, that there are more things that interact with exhaustion, particularly if they are taking things away from the Barbarian subclass, for example, and no doubt many other things that interact with exhaustion too. I don't want exhaustion to be nerfed too much, I guess is my issue from a Dungeon Master's perspective, but I equally understand that from a player's perspective, it's probably not a bad thing. So, Mindless Rage. Let's move on to that. So, this still remains at 6th level, but let's, again, look at the 2014 Player's Handbook and see how Mindless Rage is worded there for comparison. So, beginning at 6th level, you can't be charmed or frightened while raging. If you are charmed or frightened when you enter rage, the effect is suspended for the duration of the rage. Okay. Now, as it reads in the proposed playtest material, you have immunity to the charmed and frightened conditions while your rage is active, which pretty much remains the same. They've just worded it slightly differently. And if you are charmed or frightened when you enter your rage, that condition ends on you. So again, going back to the update, all they're doing is changing it so it simply ends the charmed or frightened condition rather than suspending it. I kind of like it. I think the whole suspending a condition is probably not going to be that effective, really, because, I mean, combats, though they last a long time in the actual gameplay, in the actual number of rounds, combat often doesn't last long enough for the suspension to be of any value to the game. So, and also it's one less thing to have to track. So it just makes, it's a nice lifestyle improvement. It just makes the game easier to run and easier to digest from the Dungeon Master's perspective more than the player's perspective. Because I don't think from a gameplay standpoint, from the experience of the player, I'm not sure it's going to dramatically change much. So it feels more like a DM tweak, which, again, as a forever DM, I am in favour of. So, now this is where we get to some interesting things. They've changed things up a little bit. So, next up, at 10th level in the proposed playtest material, is Retaliation, which was at 14th level. They've swapped it round with Intimidating Presence. I think that's the only thing that's changed, but let's read it just to be sure. So, Retaliation, as it is in the Player's Handbook, reads... the 2014 Player's Handbook, that is, reads, starting at 14th level, you take damage from a creature that is within 5 feet of you. Sorry, let me rephrase that. When you take damage from a creature that was in 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. Okay? As it reads in the playtest material, when you take damage from a creature that was in 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make one melee attack against that creature using a weapon or unarmed strike. Let me just grab a drink. Okay. Interesting. Not much has changed, but again, this theme that we're seeing about them specifying an unarmed strike separate to an attack action. They're just really clarifying that, yes, when you're attacking, you can use a weapon or an unarmed strike. Just for clarity's sake. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. Interesting that they've moved it to 10th level. I think that makes sense. The idea of a Barbarian utilising their reaction to get an extra attack just makes sense. And I think 10th level is a perfectly appropriate time with which to grant them that extra attack. Obviously, it then removes their ability to make an attack of opportunity, so I don't think it would be too overly powered to give retaliation to a 10th level barbarian. In fact, if anything, I would agree that 14th level is probably far too late to have been giving it in the 2014 Player's Handbook in reality. It's basically just forcing it's another opportunity to trigger an attack of opportunity in a way. It's kind of like riposte, I guess, for a barbarian, which fighters can get really early on, so I don't really see why a barbarian had to wait for 14th level. So, good change, happy with that one. So, the other one then is Intimidating Presence, which moved away from 10th level and it was moved up to 14th level. So, a few changes have happened here. So let's read through the 2014 Player's Handbook and see what it said then. So beginning at 10th level then, you can use your action to frighten someone with your menacing presence. When you do so, choose one creature that you can see within 30 feet of you. If the creature can see or hear you, it must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, DC equal 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier, or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. On subsequent turns, you can use your action to extend the duration of this effect on the frightened creature until the end of your next turn. This effect ends if the creature ends its turn out of line or sight or more than 60 feet away from you. If the creature succeeds on its saving throw, you can't use this feature on that creature again for 24 hours. So, how does that compare to the new playtest material? As an action, you can strike terror into others with your menacing presence as you swell with primal power. When you do so, each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you... Has that changed? Each creature? Oh, yes, it affects more creatures now. Oh, yes, they did note that in the general update design note. Yes, so it affects more creatures now. Which makes sense because they've moved it up to 14th level, so that's cool. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you or 60 feet of you, if your rage is active, must make a Wisdom saving throw, DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength modifier. Now that has changed because it was charisma modifier previously. Now it's strength, which I think makes more narrative sense. Now there was a intimidation. Okay, yes, because the primal knowledge feature allowed you to use strength as well to intimidate. So I guess that makes sense when at second level that primal knowledge thing kicked in. So yeah, that makes sense. Provided that the creature isn't in total cover, which also is new. So a creature can defend against it if they're in total cover. On a failed save, a creature has the frightened condition for 1 minute. At the end of each of the frightened creature's turn, the creature repeats a saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a successful save. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. If you've run out of uses for this feature, you can expend a use of your rage, choosing not to activate the rage and activating Intimidating Presence instead. Okay, I like that as well. I do like that. I think those changes are better. I think, to me, that seems like an improvement. I think the strength modifier rather than charisma makes a lot of sense. I like the fact that it's group because they've raised it up to 14th level, so that makes sense, makes it more powerful. I like the fact that total cover is an opportunity for a DM to defend against that, for want of a better phrase. And I like the fact as well that you can spend your action to... sorry, not spend your action. Spend your rage to activate it. Because it's almost like you're saying, don't make me angry, you won't like me when I'm angry, a la the Hulk. You know, and I think it's almost a way of the barbarian avoiding combat, potentially, by utilizing their intimidating presence. I think it just makes a lot of sense from a non-combat solution, kind of flexing a little bit. So that's pretty cool. So that is the Berserker Barbarian subclass. It's small changes, but actually I think really, really effective changes that I like a lot. I was not sure. I was just skimming through it before I went live, and I was like, oh, it doesn't seem to be much here. But actually, when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, I think actually all of these changes are really, really positive. I actually like this Barbarian much more. I feel as though it has more flavour. Both in terms of the core Barbarian class and the subclass too. It just suits the flavour a little bit more. It's not just about them being just an angry fighter that rages. They've really lent into the narrative of it, which for me as a dungeon master again is really what I love to see, because I can see the logic narratively of how all of this works. Excuse me. So I just wanted to take a quick moment before we get into the fighter class just to check in again and let you know about the updates, which if you didn't catch last week's stream of episode 4 of Arcana Unearthed, we are now part of the YouTube Partner Program, which means a number of things. It means that there is a merch shelf now underneath all of our videos, so you can see some of our merch directly. And with that, of course, also means that we're going to step up the merch, hopefully, the merch stuff, with some new ideas and put things out there linked to individual episodes that we can really highlight those designs as and when they show up, which is very cool. But also the other thing, which we can do now, and we have activated, is we've activated super chats and super thanks. So if you're not familiar with YouTube, a super chat is like a way of posting in the live chat or in the comments, I believe, where your comment can jump out at us and really go, hey, read me out, to really get our attention basically during the live feeds more so than anything else. And it's also a way of monetarily supporting our channel and our show. I think, and I used to be one of these people too, I think it's really easy to underestimate actually how much it costs to run a YouTube channel, to put out weekly content. Everything is subscription based now. Every bit of software that you're using, every little bit of even music or whatever, it all comes with a cost. Never mind our time to put the show out and keep the channel running. So if you did want to give us a little bit of a tip and to say thank you and just to help towards some of those costs, a super chat is great, or indeed a super thanks, which is that little heart with the dollar symbol underneath the videos. But I understand that money is not always easily given. So really, if you do want to support the show in any way, I would just ask that you simply just hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and or leave a comment or share the show and the channel with your friends and your family, anybody that you think is into D&D that would like what we're doing. So that's my plea to you. Any way you can support us, whether it's monetarily or just word of mouth, means a hell of a lot to us. So we are really, really excited now to be part of the YouTube Partner Program. It has been a milestone that we've been looking to hit for some time. We are only on the lowest tier, so we could still use your help to grow our audience as much as possible, just to, if nothing else, cover the costs of producing the show. But it is a huge, huge milestone for us, and one we're really, really, really excited for. So now we're going to come to the fighter class. Again, would have been really useful to have Anina here, because she probably knows the fighter class better than I do. But the fighter class is an interesting class anyway, because it's kind of like your basic, most core class. It is the one that probably follows the rules more than any other class in the game. Most of the other classes is about breaking some rules, whereas the fighter class is more about sticking to those rules, but just being very, very good at playing the game as the rules say it should be played, if that kind of makes sense. It's a bit meta to think of it that way, but it's the one that sticks to the rules of the game the most, and breaks them the least. So We're going to quickly go through, because I actually don't know if there's much here that's changed, but I have been proven wrong in the past. We will look at the fighter subclass another time, the champion subclass. Maybe, actually. I might change my mind on that. But for now, at least, let's just focus in on the core class. So, some design notes, for the fighter. Here are the main updates in this class, most of which were inspired by the Player's Handbook survey in 2021, which feels like a very long time ago now. Persuasion. Persuasion has been added to the class's list of skills, with an eye on the fantasy archetype of the persuasive warrior who leads others. Interesting. I like that. A nice little touch. It's kind of almost like the Honourable Knight type character. I like that. I think that's a nice touch. Makes a lot of sense narratively. Second Wind can now be used more than once between long rests without requiring a short rest. We'll come to that later. Weapon Mastery is a new first level feature, giving you new ways to use weapons. Again, we've covered that in a previous episode. I think that was our first Arcana Unearthed, so do check that out if you want a bit of detail on the Weapon Mastery. But I really like it. It's really cool. It's going to give the fighters plenty to do. Action Surge is now limited to certain fighter-themed actions. Interesting. We'll come back to that. Weapon Expert is a new 7th level feature. Ooh, new things. Yay! I think I know what Weapon Expert is. We'll come to that. Indomitable now gives you a bonus to the reroll equal to your fighter level. Weapon Adept, a new 13th level feature. Again, I think I know what that is. I think that's linked to the Weapon Mastery system. Improved Action Surge has moved from 7th level to 15th level. Unconquerable is a new 17th level feature which incorporates extra use functionality, formerly part of Indomitable. Okay. 3 extra attacks has moved from 20th level to 18th level. And Epic Boon is a new 20th level feature that increases an ability score, raising that score's maximum to 30 and gives an Epic Boon feat. So, the fighter. Let me just skim through my player's handbook. The fighter. So, let's go into the kind of basic rundown. Hit points, 1d10 per fighter level, has remained the same. Hit points at first level, 10 plus your constitution modifier, remains the same. Hit points at higher levels, 1d10 plus your constitution modifier, remains the same. Proficiencies. Armor, training, all armor and shields. They have rewritten it, but it remains the same, but they've just reworded it: light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, shields, which is all armor plus shields. Which I think... I don't even know if that's necessary to reword that. I think all armor was perfect self-explanatory, but obviously they've decided it was not. Saving throws. Strength and Constitution remains the same. Skills. Again, we know that remains the same aside from Persuasion, but let's see if anything was taken away. Previously, there was Acrobatics, Animal Handling, Athletics, History, Insight, Intimidation, Perception, Survival. Acrobatics, Animal Handling, Athletics, History, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, Perception, Survival. Sounds the same to me. So skills remain the same, except for Persuasion having been added, which we've discussed. Weapons. Weapons proficiencies. Simple and martial weapons remains the same. Tools, none, remains the same. Starting equipment. So the equipment proposed in the 2014 Player's Handbook is chainmail or leather longbow and 20 arrows. Interesting. They've just gone with chainmail, which is interesting. Or 175 gold pieces total. This is the whole equipment package. You can take this equipment pack or just go with 175 gold to spend on what you want, which is fine. A martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons. Interesting. They have changed that. Great sword or a long sword and shield, and 25 gold pieces. Interesting. Light crossbow and 20 bolts, or 2 hand axes. Just simply a light crossbow and a quiver with 20 crossbow bolts. They've just taken a lot of the choice out. And a Dungeoneers pack or an Explorers pack. They haven't given you a choice on the pack. It's just the Dungeoneers pack. This is something I'm seeing. They seem to be taking a lot of choice away from the starting equipment of classes. I kind of like it. I didn't know. I don't know why though. But there's something saying, yeah, I like that. I don't know if it's because so many other aspects have given the players so many options that I kind of like that. But then you could just take your 175 gold and buy whatever equipment you want. But I suppose in many ways, the choice they're giving you is, well, here's the recommended equipment, or here's a lump of gold. Go buy what you want if you don't like what we're offering, which is also fair. Take it or leave it. So, fighter class features. Here we get into the nitty gritty. Fighting style. At first level. Let's read. It's quite big in the original Player's Handbook, so let's see how it reads now. Fighting style. You have honed your martial prowess and gain the fighting style defense feat, or you gain another fighting style feat of your choice. I think that's in the other playtest packet that we've not covered. I think that was like one of the really early ones, and I can't remember what it said, and I don't have it in front of me. I should have prepared for that, really. The feats thing with the fighter. Damn it. But interestingly, they have highlighted this is the one we recommend, fighting style defense. But then if you want to choose something else, again, it's kind of take it or leave it. There's other options too. So it's essentially a fighting style feat specifically. I might need to go back and look at those at another time. Second Wind. So Second Wind, as it reads in the 2014 Player's Handbook currently, you have a limited well of stamina that you can draw on to protect yourself from harm. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. This is how it reads now. You have a limited well of stamina that you can draw on to recover from harm. As a bonus action, you can regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level, which is exactly the same. You can use this feature twice, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, that's changed then, hasn't it? Once you use this feature, so you get to use it more, but you have to finish a long rest before you can use it again. Not a short rest. Short rest won't do. Kind of like that. There's too much healing in 5th edition currently. So the idea that that has been nerfed, I think is good, because short rests are... I mean, look. Here's my take. Short rests are as problematic as you make them as a dungeon master. There are ways and means to discourage a short rest. But you know, even then there are times where it's like, yeah, I struggle to justify why you can't short rest right now, so by all means, go ahead. But if the resource management side of things gets a little bit tricky from a DM's perspective, wandering monsters are great for interrupting a short rest. So I don't quite buy into the angst around short rests and the resting mechanics in 5th edition. Likewise with the long rest. You can only long rest once in a 24-hour period, and I'm very strict with my game tables about that. But I like the fact that they have kind of eradicated some of the issues around that, at least within the fighter. When you reach certain fighter levels, just to continue, when you reach certain fighter levels, you gain more uses of this feature, as shown in the Second Wind column of the fighter table. Interesting. So they've also increased the number of times you can use this. So there's a cap now daily, but that does scale. So once you hit 4th level, it increases to 3. Then once you hit 10th level, it increases to 4. And then it never goes above 4. So the maximum that a fighter can use this feature is 4 times in a day. Again, like, this is an improvement from my perspective as a Forever DM anyway. So, also at first level, Weapon Mastery. Your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of 3 kinds of simple or martial weapons of your choice. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and change the kinds of weapons you choose. When you reach certain fighter levels, you gain the ability to use the mastery properties of more kinds of weapons, as shown in the weapon mastery column of the fighter table. So that goes for a maximum of 5. Again, it's the same level thresholds, pretty much, yes, as with the second wind. So, as that compares with the weapon mastery for the Barbarian, a Barbarian gets 2 types. A fighter gets 3. Again, they're trying to make the fighter the most fightery fighter out of all of the classes, and giving them 3 weapon types to utilize, I think, is very cool. And again, I like the fact, I know a lot of people aren't too keen on the idea of a fighter being able to just do drills and change their mastery properties in the morning. But I kind of like it from a gameplay perspective, because I do feel bad as a DM putting the focus just on spellcasters for 3 or 4 minutes whilst they go, which spells do I want today? And you're kind of like trying to give the other players something to do in that time. Like, well, whilst they're thinking about that, you do some role play for me. That can sometimes drag a little bit. So I like the fact that the martial classes now also have something to go, what am I going to choose today? I think that's a good thing. I think it works well. So from a mechanical perspective and a gameplay experience, like a lifestyle change, I like it. But I understand why people are like, wait, so they just practice with some weapons, and everything's fine, and like they get to just switch up. 5th edition starts to fall down when you get a little bit too simulationist with it. It's the same with healing. Like, oh, I'm just going to go to bed and now magically all of my wounds are healed. If you choose to look at it that way, then yes, it's a little bit... but also, because magic. Because this is fantasy and make-believe and things. So yeah, I understand the issues with it, but again, from a lifestyle tweak, I do like it a lot. So, Action Surge. Just to remind myself, the Action Surge is now limited to certain themed actions. So, Action Surge, as it reads in the 2014 Player's Handbook currently, starting at 2nd level, you can push yourself beyond your normal limits for a moment. On your turn, you can take 1 additional action on top of your regular action, and a possible bonus action. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. Starting at 17th level, you can use it twice before a rest, but only once on the same turn. As it reads now, in the proposed playtest material, so this might be printed in the next Player's Handbook, you can push yourself beyond your normal limits for a moment. On your turn, you can take 1 additional action chosen from the following action options: attack, dash, disengage, or dodge. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. I don't know if the change of this is really that significant. I'm guessing it's about managing the action economy of the fighter and just tidying things up a little bit. Yeah. I guess it's just about balancing out the action economy a little bit, but I don't know if this is a significant enough nerf for it to upset anybody. Because when I think about the main actions that one takes in combat, it's attack, dash, disengage, or dodge. And I think any of those is equally valid. Like, you get to use an additional dash action, so you're using your action, so you get to increase your speed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. I think if anybody's complaining about it, I think when it actually gets into play, I don't think it will be that big of a deal. So then we hit 3rd level with the fighter subclass. You gain the champion subclass, or another fighter subclass of your choice. The champion is detailed after the class's description, and other subclasses will appear in future Unearthed Arcana Articles. A subclass is a specialization that grants you special abilities at certain fighter levels. For the rest of your career, you gain each of your subclasses features that are of your fighter level and lower. This class's description tells you the levels that your subclass provides features. So this is where the fighter class generally slows down in terms of interesting things, which I think is somewhat of a design flaw of the fighter class generally. But again, the fighter class is designed to be like the base class. That's how I see it. It's the one that taps into all of the various parts of the game, doesn't break anything. It just follows the rules quite nicely. There's nothing really too exciting in terms of what the class offers outside of the norm, which I think is why it can feel a little bit like, okay, boring. But actually, the options that are available to it, like the degree to which it can access feats and things, also makes it one of the most customizable classes, and I think we will see that here as well. Because at 4th level, you gain the ability score improvement feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. At 5th level, you gain extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn, which is the same. Then at 5th level, still at 5th level, so you get extra attack, and you also gain another feat. Which, has that changed? Yes, it has. Interesting. Okay, that's interesting. So they seem to have moved things around a little bit on the progression. So at 5th level, you get extra attack and a feat. That's, I mean, at 5th level, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's going to be quite an exciting level, I think, for a fighter to reach. At 6th level, previously you gained an ability score improvement, but instead now you gain a subclass feature. Then at 7th level, that would have been previously where you got your first subclass feature, which has moved down to 6th. But now at 7th level, you gain Weapon Expert. So this is a new feature. When you have honed your use of you have honed your use of weapons to an art. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose one of the kinds of mastery weapons you're using and replace its mastery property with another mastery property. The chosen kind of weapon must qualify for the new property. For example, you could replace the longsword's flex property with the push property. This property change applies only for you, not for others, and the change ends for you when you finish your next long rest. This is really cool, actually. So it's basically mechanically speaking, the fighter is changing how the weapons work. I guess the idea is that they are utilizing weapons in unorthodox ways. And I like this. This is cool. This is interesting. You're kind of in a way modifying the weapons, but you're not actually changing the properties of the weapon. You're just changing narratively how the fighter uses the weapon. I like that. And you get to do that every day. Just experiment with how you're going to utilize a weapon. I like that. I like the customizability of it, plus the fact that you're also, when you finish your long rest, you're changing the weapons that you're using. Like, the fighter is very much turning into like a weapons expert, which really it should be, I think. I like it. 8th level, feat. So again, ability score improvement or a feat of your choice. And then at 9th level, you gain Indomitable, which has changed slightly. What did they say? Now gives you a bonus to the reroll equal to your fighter level. So Indomitable, again, this would have been at 9th level before, so that's not changed. Indomitable previously. Beginning at 9th level, you can re-roll a saving throw that you fail. If you do so, you must use the new roll, and you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. You can use this feature twice between long rest starting at 13th level and 3 times at 17th level. Indomitable now, in the proposed playtest. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. Okay, that's new. So you get an extra bonus of your fighter level. If you do so, you must use the new roll. That's the same. And you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest, which also remains the same. So they've linked it to the fighter level rather... And this is another thing that they're doing. They're linking things in the new version of 5th edition to the proficiency bonus that a character has, or to the level of the character, much more so than they were before. And that's how they're doing the scaling now, rather than just these random things like, oh, it goes up to 3 times at 17th level, twice at 13th level, which is harder to track. These things are just generally much easier to scale and much easier to remember, because the feature kind of just says it within in the bulk. I think it's a cleaner design, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure how that will affect balancing. I don't expect much at all, if anything. I just think it's a nice lifestyle design, which they're doing a really good job of, I think, with 5th edition, generally speaking. There are some controversial things that I don't agree with that they've tried to simplify. Druid. But that being said, I haven't read the new playtest material for the Druid class for the Play Packet 6 yet, because I'm still working my way through this. So maybe they've changed that, but at least from playtest packet number 4, I certainly was not happy with that. But anyway, we're not talking about the Druid today, we're talking about the fighter. But all of that to say, these streamlining, these lifestyle changes are nice and efficient and nice and easy to follow along with. 10th level. Subclass feature, which would have been the case. 11th level, 2 extra attacks. Your extra attack features now confers 2 extra attacks rather than 1, which is the same. It's worded differently, I think, but essentially it's the same. 12th level, you'd get a feat, also the same. 13th level, Weapon Adept. Now, this is new. This would have been 2 uses of Indomitable previously, but that's changed. So instead now they've given you Weapon Adept. You are a master of weapons. When you use your Weapon Expert feature, which is about the one about changing the properties of the weapon, or the weapon mastery property, when you use your Weapon Expert feature on a kind of weapon, you can give that kind of weapon 2 properties rather than 1. But you then use only 1 property at a time whenever you make an attack roll against a target with that kind of weapon. Oh, hang on. Punctuation. Let's try that again. This is a very long sentence. When you use your Weapon Expert feature on a kind of weapon, you can give that kind of weapon 2 properties rather than 1. But you then use only 1 property at a time. Whenever you make an attack roll against a target with that kind of weapon, you decide which of the 2 properties applies to that attack, full stop. That was all 1 sentence, blimey. Grammatically, guys at Wizards, you can do better than that. So, let's break that down. So basically, you give it 2 properties, but when you make the attack, you choose which property you're going to use. Okay? You make this decision before the attack hits or misses. So basically, you declare it. You declare it as you're attacking. So you might say, like, I'm going to use my longsword with the push property. Roll to hit. So, for example, here we are. You could apply the push and topple properties to longswords, and whenever you hit a target with a longsword, you decide which of those properties to use against the target. 14th level, subclass feature. Now, this would have been a feat before, but they've moved that. They've swapped it round. Oh, no, they haven't quite swapped it round. Because at 15th level is improved action surge, which has moved from 17th level to 15th level. You can use action surge twice before a rest, but no more than once on your turn. Okay, fine. 16th level is a feat, which is the same. 17th level, Unconquerable, which was action surge and Indomitable, 3 uses previously. So Unconquerable is a new 17th level feature. When you're in great peril, you can tap into a deep well of resilience within yourself. If you fail a saving throw and your indomitable feature is expended, you can use it again. What? Oh. If you fail a saving throw and your indomitable feature is expended, you can use it again by expending a use of your second wind, which also heals you. Okay. Alright. So basically, you can use your indomitable feature as normal. So fail saving throw, reroll. Then you have Unconquerable. You fail a saving throw and your indomitable feature is expended. So you've already used it. It grants you an extra use of Indomitable by also allowing you to use your second wind, which... Where's your second wind? Where is second wind? Oh, second wind. It's on the first page. So basically, you just roll a hit dice. Okay, allows you to use second wind, allows you to use Indomitable. Fine. Not too exciting, to be honest. 18th level, 3 extra attacks, which has moved down from 20th level to 18th now. So now you get 3 extra attacks rather than 2, so that's a total of 4 attacks in a round from 18th level. 19th level would be a feat, which also remains the same, and 20th level you get to pick your epic boon. You gain the following benefits. You choose your strength or dexterity score. That score increases by 2 and its maximum is now 30. And you gain the epic boon of recovery or an epic boon feat of your choice. Just to remind you, the epic boon of recovery, which was covered in one of our other episodes, but you increase your constitution score by 1. Okay, yep, you increase your constitution score by 1. You gain last stand, which means that when you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you drop to 1 hit point instead and regain a number of hit points equal to half your hit point maximum. And once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until a long rest. And you also become death defiant. When you take damage while you have 0 hit points, you can make a death saving throw instead of suffering a death saving throw failure. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I was a fighter that I would use that as my epic boon feature, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I'm not sure it would be for me. I think I'd probably go for something else. So that is the fighter subclass now. I am going to push on, and I am going to look at the fighter subclass champion, because I think it's better that we cover a whole class and their subclass in one video rather than doing half and half. It's just nicer. So let's look at the champion. So, a champion focuses on the development of martial prowess honed to deadly perfection. Champions combine rigorous training with physical excellence to deal devastating blows, withstand peril, and garner glory. So, champion updates. Here are the footnotes, as it were, and we'll go into specifics in a moment. Adaptable Victor is a new 3rd level feature giving champions non-combat utility, which I always like. Win on the non-combat utility. I love that sort of stuff, so I'll be interested to see what that actually entails. Remarkable Athlete, one of the lower rated fighter features, has been replaced by Adaptable Victor and Heroic Warrior. Okay. I'm sure we'll get into the details of that in a minute. Additional fighting style has moved from 10th level to 6th level, so you get one earlier. Woohoo! Heroic Warrior is a new 6th level feature, which we'll get into in a minute. And Survivor has been enhanced. It now also benefits your death saving throws. So let's get into the nitty gritty here. So, 3rd level, Adaptable Victor. This is a new 3rd level feature, the one that gives non-combat utility to the champion. You've studied your friends and foes alike, and learned that victory relies on adaptability. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can gain proficiency in 1 skill from those available to this class at 1st level, as you remind yourself of past lessons. This proficiency lasts until the end of your next long rest. I like this. Again, I've talked about how I like the weapon mastery, giving fighter classes and martial classes something to do after a long rest whilst the wizard is looking over his spells. I kind of like this too for exactly the same reason. It's another thing for the fighter to think about at the start of the day, whilst the spellcasters are playing with their toys. This just gives them something to consider too. And so from a lifestyle gameplay flow aspect, I like it. I think it's cool. That's a nice touch. Very, very simple. Really effective for, again, that lifestyle, that gameplay flow, that gameplay loop. So, third level, improved critical. Your attack rolls with weapons and unarmed strikes can score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20, which remains exactly the same, except just worded slightly differently. Sixth level, additional fighting style. You get to pick a different fighting style. And then sixth level, we also have heroic warrior. So, this is a new sixth level feature. The thrill of battle drives you towards victory. Once per combat, you can give yourself heroic advantage if you started your turn without it. What is heroic advantage? What the hell is heroic advantage? I don't see this. What is heroic advantage? Is this something I have to go to the rules glossary for? Bear with me. What on earth is heroic advantage? Is that just like inspiration? Heroic advantage. I don't know what you are. Heroic advantage. It is in the rules glossary. When you have heroic advantage, also called inspiration, okay, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a d20 test. You decide to do so immediately after rolling the d20. So it's inspiration. Right. Why are we changing it to heroic advantage? Just call it inspiration. Why? Inspiration works. Don't like the heroic advantage thing. Seems completely ridiculous. But, advantage, basically. We like advantage. Advantage is good. Yes. Advantage is good. Give yourself heroic advantage if you start the turn without. So you're giving yourself inspiration. So you don't have to spend it then. You're just going, I have inspiration now, and I'm going to wait to use it. And you get to use that once per combat or encounter. Cool. All right. 10th level. Superior critical. This was 15th level before, but this is now moving to 10th level. Superior critical. Your attack rolls with weapons and armor strikes now score a critical hit on an 18 or 20, which is, again, the same. Then we have, at 14th level, Survivor, which has supposedly been enhanced. So let's look at Survivor as it's as it reads, in the 2014 Player's Handbook. At 18th level, which has now been moved to 14, at 18th level, you attain the pinnacle of resilience in battle. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your constitution modifier if you have no more than half your hit points left. You don't gain this benefit if you have 0 hit points. So you have to drop down to... You have to be bloodied, essentially, for those that remember the 4th edition days. You have to be bloodied down to half hit points or less. That's how it currently works. And you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your constitution modifier. Is that it? That was at 18th level. Man. You can tell I don't play high-level campaigns very often. That's so stingy. So let's see. 14th level now, Survivor. You gain the pinnacle of resilience in battle, giving you these following benefits. Defy death. You have advantage on death saving throws. Moreover, when you roll an 18 to 20 on a death save, you gain the benefit of rolling a 20. So you get critical hits on your death saving throws. Lovely. Heroic Rally. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points. This is better. At the start of each... Oh, no. I misread. It wasn't as stingy as I thought. It was at the start of each of your turns. So you're kind of regenerating. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your constitution modifier if you have no more than half your hit points left. You don't gain this benefit if you have 0 hit points. So, I'm a forever DM. Sometimes the the player options are lost on me. This is one of them. I've never had an 18th level champion in my campaign. In fact, I don't think I've even ran a game that's gone that high. Despite having run 5th edition since it released. So yes, so survival wasn't as stingy as I thought. They've reduced it down to 14th level, which is a good thing, I think, because, yes, it was at the start of each of your turns, but it was still only 5 plus your constitution modifier for what was an 18th level class feature, which kind of sucked, to be honest. I mean, 5 plus your constitution modifier, 18th level. You're a fighter, so yes, your constitution might be high, but it's probably not going to be your highest one. So you're probably looking at no more than 10 hit points per round. And you're also going to be the guy at the front. So you're going to be taking probably more than 10, unless your AC is ridiculously high, which is possible. But then, yeah, it still was a bit stingy. I stick by what I said. It was a bit stingy. But now they've given this Defy Death feature, which allows you to have an advantage on saving throws and also rolling an 18 to 20 on a death save. So your odds of actually getting a critical on a death save, a critical success on a death save is pretty high now. Kind of makes the champion quite defiant, which again, from a narrative perspective, from a flavor perspective, I think works pretty damn well. So that's the champion subclass. Final thoughts on the fighter from playtest packet number 5, because I'm pretty sure the fighter is also included in playtest packet number 6. So there's already an update. This is already a little bit out of date, but we'll give you some idea as the direction that they were headed. The fighter class, the changes that they've made to it, I like it a lot. I like this weapon mastery system. In fact, I love the weapon mastery system. It was one of the things that I was most excited to find out about when they first started the playtest material generally, because they were alluding to the weapons system and what they were doing with the weapons system. Because I think the weapons is one of the things that lets the fighter class down in the current iteration of 5th edition from the 2014 Player's Handbook. Because the fighter should be interesting when it comes to using weapons, but the weapons themselves have been dull. They don't really do anything aside from perhaps change the damage dice, because the weapon properties were just uninteresting and not enough to make things feel different. When you compare it to some of the other things that classes can do. So this weapon mastery system, I really, really like it, and I really like the fact that this fighter is kind of tapping into that weapon mastery system. And it's funny because I've been saying about how the fighter class is the one that doesn't break any of the rules, and that's kind of how I see it, but this weapon mastery system seems to be the exception to that. This is where the fighter really does bend some rules, which is nice to see the fighter having that capability to be able to bend some rules with the weapon mastery system, because they can use weapons better than anybody else. Just like the ranger is able to travel through the wilderness better than anybody else, and the rogue is able to break into things and, stab people in the back better than anybody else. The flavor of the fighter now definitely feels like one of discipline and martial prowess, and not just a barbarian without the range. They've kind of got a flavor of their own, which was much needed. So I really, really love what they've done with the weapon mastery system and the ways that the fighter can tap into that other classes can't. The champion subclass, though, was a bit boring. It was my take. I mean, yes, they're meant to be the most fightery fighter, but I don't feel as though they really had enough to make the champion subclass really that exciting. They're just better at hitting critical hits. They get a different skill proficiency every day, and they are less likely to die. That's kind of the footnote of the champion. And I mean, yes, it's meant to demonstrate martial prowess and everything, but I don't know. It's just not exciting enough, particularly when the fighter itself is more. I'm more excited by the core fighter stuff than the subclass stuff, and I think that's almost a bit backwards. I like to be excited by the subclass things of like, ooh, this subclass can do things that other people can't. You know, I think of the Gloomstalker Ranger as an example. Like, the Gloomstalker Ranger really does tap into things that are so Ranger-centric, but also in a way that is just unique to the Gloomstalker. I don't think the champion's got anything unique about it. So, a bit disappointed by the champion, if I'm honest with you. So, that's going to be it then for this episode, as we've looked at the Barbarian, the Berserker subclass of the Barbarian, and the Fighter. Next time, which will hopefully be Wednesday, is kind of my hope and my plan. So Wednesday, we will be looking at the Sorcerer class. I'm very interested to know how they've gone about changing the Sorcerer, because they've done a lot of changes to spellcasters, and they don't seem to be liking the idea of learning spells so much as wanting everybody to prepare spells again. Sorcerers was different, right? Because sorcerers were able to learn. They didn't change their spells, but they just knew them, so they were like a simpler class than the wizard in that respect. So I'm interested to see how things land, because there's only the sorcerer, as far as I'm aware, is the only class now, or the only class that I hadn't seen whether or not they were going to make them prepare spells or learn spells. So we'll get into that next time, which will hopefully be Wednesday. Keep an eye out on our social media and, of course, the YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, do subscribe and hit the little bell icon, and you'll get notified when we schedule some live streams. But for now, that is it for today's episode of Arcana Unearthed, and I will catch you at